that that's what I said. I mean, I remember it being said, yeah, this sounds good, let's, make sure that that's set aside in the budget. But again, it's like no specifics were attached to, yeah, that sounds good, let's set aside this amount in the budget. It was not attached to $3,000 should go to this person for this thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we did have the EC in that case did have an internal budget that listed how things were, how we came up with the 7,500, but that wasn't submitted at the council presentation.
Well, it was, it
Oh,
just
was it?
wasn't itemized. When you
Well, that's what I
submitted-
mean, it wasn't, we had that internally itemized, but we didn't submit it at the council meeting. And I think you're saying that at the council meeting, that Catherine made that request, but council itself didn't say, okay, we see this budget request and we approve it.
Yes. What we need for audit documentation is council says, council resolves to or approves this expenditure and the amount of X dollar for the purposes of
Okay.
X. Vote.
We
Yay.
can start doing that.
Yeah.
It's getting, I mean, yeah, that's,
Well,
sounds good.
well, yeah, because in this one in particular, we're talking about $7,478.
Yeah,
It's not a small amount.
yeah, it's just, we didn't used to do it, so.
Yeah, and I think, to Mary Ann's point, I want everyone to remember, we've had, since we've been here, 3 finance directors, different styles, different processes, different approaches, and honestly, council hasn't been, all that involved in the nitty-gritty, which I don't think we need to be. We just need to make sure that whatever you guys need for audit purposes, so there is clarity, and then I want to make sure it gets encumbered on this sheet right away,
Yeah.
so that we have an accurate number of what we've got left to work with.
Yep.
So-
And so what we've encumbered from that $7,478 is the $3,000 for the neighborhood gardens.
Okay, so then I guess I would like to go back and do what we were supposed to do on the environmental commission one. So, I mean, I think we want that documentation, right?
Yes,
Okay.
we need the documentation so we can allocate or
Okay.
encumber the $7,000.
All right, so let's get that on the next agenda and just,
So I should
Take care of that.
submit that,
Yes.
okay.
And should it be submitted this way, or can it just be
No,
submitted
it's-
as, here's the request for the year, itemized?
Yeah,
Okay.
okay,
which is the expenditure form.
good. So
Does that work for
actually,
you? Yeah.
yeah, I mean, this is very clear now. But yeah, for a while, it's been not clear to me what's not happening. So that's good. Okay. I'm sure we'll have more to talk about with budgeting stuff in the future, but let's go ahead and look at the Juneteenth application and then get into those. All right?
Really quickly,
Yes.
but like to what Judy mentioned about making this form a one form thing. This is your part, do this,
Mhm.
do not write below this line on one piece of paper. I mean, that, yes.
Yeah,
Is that
without me a
thing?
whole lot, because these
Yeah.
are going every which way.
Right,
These are not all coming to me.
right, and so doing that would streamline the process and make it, I mean, it feels like it would make it less, I mean, it seems that there's like with whatever, it seems kind of complicated, but doing it that way would make it less complicated and easier.
So
For everybody
is that
involved.
something that you could draft and then I guess folks can take a look at or something?
Yeah, it's effectively turning 2 forms into 1, 2 documents into 1. Because there is a expenditure request
Yep.
form. It just needs to be page 2 of this. You print it and it could be backside, but it's 2 document. 2 in 1 page.
Do you not work on drafting something up, pass it around, make sure it makes sense to everybody and then we'll be done?
Yeah,
Okay.
we just need to make sure it goes through Matt, so
Oh, yeah.
if he can say, yep, as soon as I get this, I have the go-ahead
Yeah,
to.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So I keep this form as updated as we can, get any suggestions for how we report out what's been encumbered. I'm certainly open to it.
I think it looks good. Okay, Juneteenth request. So from the The report I'm seeing, it looks like we've already allocated 500 for the speaker, is that right? Okay. And so I'm sure everyone's taking a look at this. This is a request for additional 1,500. So, thoughts? And I don't know, is there, I mean, Harmon or Kevin, is there sort of a, is this something that you're championing, or?
Well, I will submit to championing.
I use that word.
Yeah.
To say it, yeah.
I will submit to be the champion of this request because even though it did state at council, it probably would have under normal circumstances come to HRC. And, you know, I'm happy that the Juneteenth planning is going on like it is without as much effort as I had to put into it last year. But I again will want to stay involved to make sure everything gets taken care of, so that's a very long yes.
Okay, so you think, okay, so do you support an additional 1,500 request?
I do, it's, you know, I don't wanna do comparisons and say, well, they got 16, why is it 2,000? I don't care if it's $2, it's a thing we wanna do, and we got the support. I guess I would ask Ray about the fact that they're asking for porta potty is, I don't know if we get like a deal or discount or could, wherever they're planning to get them, could we sort of augment that?
We can request it.
Okay, would that really make a
There's
difference?
been an expense for it. I think because we got to Rumpke, and Rumpke is, or Solid Waste, we got a, you know, over $250,000 contract.
Right.
I would hope that we're getting a better deal.
Yeah, yeah, so if we could, you know, just to maybe try to offset it so that from an optics perspective, which again, I'm ignoring, you know, 2,000 versus 1,600 for Pride, doesn't mean we care about one thing more than the other.
Right.
Well, but it does make a difference, because the 1,650 that was approved for Pride, they were broken out into separate categories. 300 for the banners,
Mhm.
200 for the community event, the 500 for fee rentals and whatnot. The Juneteenth request is split out and they've itemized their total budget, so.
So let's talk about that for a minute. So, okay, porta potties, that seems like an appropriate request.
Right.
Gift cards makes me nervous. And so I guess,
And then you can swap out the gift card for that
Right.
Bryan Center space fee.
right. So I think that's one thing that we have to think about. And Matt, this occurs to me, so, I mean, is that an appropriate expense for us?
I
to
actually
do?
don't have a
Oh,
copy of the.
So it's volunteer gift cards to local business. What would the auditors think?
Yeah, well, I mean, certainly a gray area. Yeah, no, I'll be okay. So these are volunteers for the event that we would buy the gift cards for, or we would, or the local, I mean, if they're
I
local
think
vendors,
we
could they
could-
donate their own gift cards?
I think they would buy them from the local businesses and then give them to the volunteers.
I have something to say. So this is 365 project sponsored,
Yeah.
right? They're 501c3, is that right? So with Human or the Feminist Telefund, when I wanted businesses to donate gift cards, just ask, because they can write it off.
Right.
And so that's a thing that if you're involved with a nonprofit, you can know about and you can do that.
Right.
So, and that's also like, you're paying for something for a nonprofit that they're then gonna purchase. Like, it just seems like a gray area, because they can just go ask for it. You can just go ask for it. And every business that I've ever gone to in town has donated gift cards, sometimes up to like $400 in services.
Yeah.
Massage therapy, you know, so this
Yeah, I've had
is,
that same experience.
yeah, and if you ask, the businesses in this town are more than happy and more than willing to contribute that.
Yeah, but I think, Brian, it gets to almost a bigger conversation, how do we provide support to our volunteers, right?
Mhm.
And what kind of, are we able to provide food and all that stuff? I think that answer is yes. The gift cards, you're almost borderline with compensation, monetary compensation. And I think it'd be cleaner if that was a donated expense as opposed to, through the general fund, so to speak. If it, not saying it can't be done, I'm just thinking it starts getting into more contextual grade circumstances.
Okay, good. And I think ultimately, that's where it will be important for you to weigh in, when some of these requests come through, if something looks like it might be problematic.
Sure, and we learn by asking, that's exactly it, because I don't, some of it is gonna be answered with more questions in some ways, like, until we find out, and then we flesh out like really what it is, and then we can have a specific answer for those kind of things. And in some ways, it can make us, more flexible moving forward, to know what we can do, so.
Cool. And I think what we're really talking about is maybe an additional step in the process. Because I used the phrase pass-through a little while ago, and a lot of, again, the usual every year kind of things, they thumbs up right away. And I think, again, from an accountability perspective, having that dialogue should be part of the process. Like, is this legit? And also, it's important here that they're not just saying, write us a blank check. They're saying, we have a bigger budget, and we've been responsible, and we've got presumably other funds from other places, and we're just asking you for support for a portion of our overall budget. So they're doing the work, and I, as a councilman person, appreciate that. I mean, you got some skin in the game. I mean, you're asking us for a third of what you say your stated budget.
Right. So I like porta potties, I like the rental fee, and then the other thing that we often did in the past through HRC was support speakers. So I know we've already put 500, they have 800. So anyway, I think that we should, I guess, be specific about the things that we're gonna fund around this request.
So with the porta potties, that's a thing, I mean, is that something that we can do
Yes.
and at less than $500?
Oh, yeah, I guess we can check.
I mean, you don't even have to requisition it, you could just say, the village will take care of obtaining and placing the porta potties.
Okay.
Yeah.
Done.
But we still have to pay for it, so it's okay for them to
Right.
approve the porta potty expenditure, we'll go ahead and order and pay for it.
Okay, and so, I mean, so I guess my question is it gonna be less expensive? I mean, is it gonna cost less than $500 for us to do it?
Yeah, I think normally they do, because,
Okay. Because of the contract,
Because of
because
the
the
relationship.
relationship, okay.
Yeah.
so
Oh, sorry.
just like Pride,
Mhm.
right, if the entire amount was approved, we broke it out to different line items, and some of that money is coming right back to us to pay that expense.
Sure, and that's sort of the nuts and bolts on
Yeah.
what I try to focus on, the accounting and the coding, which ultimately isn't that big a deal for others, so I acknowledge that, but,
Are there
certainly.
going to be other expenses that the village government will incur through this?
Yes, once they're in the village, we are going to have a public safety team provide security, once they're in our
So
jurisdiction.
is that the only additional expense?
I think that's the soft cost. I put some time into it, Johnny put some time into it. There are costs, but, those aren't necessarily costs that we're going to charge for. We're absorbing that.
Right, but I mean, if we were going to have this list of events, and then how much the village itself contributes, then that would come into.
Yeah, it comes into play.
I mean, I support this. I'm
Right, it's
support-
kind of like what we did with Pride, so yeah. Gavin?
I was gonna say, I don't know if this is like required for accounting purposes. I guess what I would prefer is to say, it sounds like, get into the details, they're asking for $1,500. Can we just cut them a check for $1,500 and then they figure out the best thing to use it for?
I don't think that's the best approach, because, there's another aspect of this too, which is how the public feels about their taxpayer dollars being spent. And so, you know, criticisms had come up in the past about, yeah, and then, well, but, you know, maybe too much of a focus on food and that sort of thing. And so that's why I think it is important that we are clear about the kinds of things that we're funding. And in the past, I'll say, I mean, we had citizens come to meetings really not happy about our board and commission budget. All right, and so, I mean, part of why we do it is because it supports our local businesses, it supports our community. I mean, there, you know, we can make the case for that, but I think we need to look at the details. I don't know if other people have opinions, but different opinions.
No, I mean, I agree with you, yeah, it's not, yeah, there's, although, Gavin, that sounds like a nice proposal in terms of streamlining the process. You know, we have to at least have some idea of what the money's gonna be spent for. 'Cause if it's an inappropriate expenditure for other dollars, then we ought not, support it not to be very vocal about that.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I would assume that there would be, you know, sort of, here's the kinds of things we spend it on. Just to put it in the larger context, here's what I'm really interested in. I'm trying